everybody, and welcome to From the Sideline, a show where at least five of us, if we get us all in this platform, of the biggest NFL fans, we talk about all things NFL, including the off season, which is right now. So we usually go live on Sundays at around 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're live right now on YouTube, X, and Facebook. So to the right of me is CJ, below me is Jackson, and I am Monique. I am your host for the evening, and we are going to get started with the big topic that a lot of people are talking about because it just got released maybe last month. Which team, guys, is going to win it all this season? That's right. We are going to preview our 2025-2026 NFL season opening odds predictions, which is really centered around who's going to win the Super Bowl this year, as well as Super Bowl matches, and then we'll get into a few factors like FPI and everything like that. So, we are going to get started with the fact that we only have 96 more days to the start of the season. That's so exciting. I am beyond pumped. I am wearing my proud Patriots sweater in celebration or pre-celebration of this kind of preview to the NFL season of this year. But let's talk about the five teams, at least 5 or 6 teams that I had racked up that are previewed to win the Super Bowl this year. You guys can probably figure out which teams I'm going to be saying, but I will talk about the winners of the 2025-2026 Super Bowl predictions are number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles at plus 650. Number 2, the Baltimore Ravens at plus 700. Now, this might not be the most updated version because there's the ESPN version that has like the Kansas City Chiefs as like second place, which they're pretty much tied in terms of the odds. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills at plus 750, and then the Kansas City Chiefs follow suit plus 750, and then the Detroit Lions at plus 850. So I'm gonna start with CJ first. CJ, any surprises to you with these top 5-6 teams that I just listed?
Not really. I think obviously the Philadelphia Eagles still being the odds-on favorite to win, especially how loaded that roster is. They definitely did lose a few key pieces that they did have last year that came that really got a big payday. They paid a few key people, so that you'll see some younger people step up. And in theory, they should have the ultimate system to be able to let guys get their bag, maybe just not here, but they keep a few key guys that are at that target age demographic that they want, that they can still keep peaking and pay them. Obviously, Howie understands that you should pay your players, Cincinnati Bengals, and that you should be able to get guys extended continuously because they signed Saquon Barkley. Then they were able to re-up them the year later, say, hey, you did so great for us this past year that we want to show you our appreciation to you, that we're going to re-up you and make you the highest paid running back after signing a pretty solid deal the year before. So, like, seeing that just makes this organization, like, they understand what it takes to win and continue winning and having players who want to fight hard for the shield. I hate that being a Washington Commanders fan. I absolutely hate that, despise that, because they're going to be a team that's there. Like, they have all the pieces. Barring them just having a injury crisis or just forgetting how to play football, the Philadelphia Eagles should be a team that continuously competes every year.
Okay, so no surprises, CJ, from your end. Are you surprised that the Ravens, according to this ranking, beat the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of them being higher up on the predictions and like the odds Is that really surprising to you? Even I believe the Bills are above them. They're a bit tied when it comes to the odds, but at least the Ravens are up there right now. They're second place in the rankings. Does that surprise you in any way?
No, because I think Lamar is continuously peaking, and he's continuously. I mean, to me, he had three or two MVP caliber seasons in a row, and he's doing a lot. And then with the added of Derrick Henry, with the second year of understanding how they can play together, I think they're going to be off to a faster start. I mean, if Isaiah Likely wore one size smaller to start the year, they would have beat Kansas City Chiefs to started off. So they're a tough team. I think they are a well run organization. Um, they haven't really lost too much. There'll be another year with Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, and then another year for Zach Orr as defensive coordinator, which last year was his first year. So this is a team that should have more continuity. Obviously, under Harbaugh leadership, who's been there for 17, 18 years now. So understanding that, structure is very strong. I mean, Lamar Jackson should have won the MVP last year,
Hmm.
to be honest with you. But, things happen. And Josh Allen had a great year. No, not trying to discount him whatsoever. It was definitely a toss up. Could have been like two co MVPs if they wanted to do that. But yeah, like I think the Ravens are a team that's like really strong and it's close. But obviously a few playoff performances that's just not up to par, for what they should be and how dominant they could be. So, but I think they're a team that's very close. That's very close. That can take it this year.
Okay, and Jackson, do any of the five or six teams that I just listed, does that surprise you? And in terms of the ranking at which their odds are, any of that surprise you whatsoever, including the fact that the Ravens are above the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I'm with CJ. I think that the Super Bowl winner is often the favorite in the long odds when we talk about like way out before the season starts, unless they lose their biggest pieces, right? QB retires or coach their head. Sometimes their offensive coordinator moves on, defensive coordinator. Oftentimes there's big moves, and Philly's kept a lot. Like CJ said, they did have to move on from some guys, but so does every team. So yeah, I'm not super surprised with Philly. It's kind of the safe thing for Vegas to do at this point. And then with the Ravens, once again, we're talking long odds, way out from the season even starting. The difference between 700 and 750, like they might as well be tied.
Mm.
It's not if you're someone who's betting thousands of dollars, sure, it's a big difference. But if you're some SEC college freshman who's putting $20 on whoever to win the Super Bowl, it doesn't make a huge difference to you, right? So yeah, I'm not super surprised with the order. Um, I think that it makes a lot of sense with you look at those teams, the stable quarterback position, usually stout running backs, right? I don't know who the Chiefs are going with running back. Again, they tend to like a committee anyway. So
Hmm.
that's not too big of a concern, but it's more and more an offensive league, of course. Just Philly had a great offense and a much greater defense. So yeah, I'm interested for us to get into some of the other notable opening odds, right? Some teams that have some longer shots, but can maybe make someone some money if they're willing to to take that risk.
Yeah, it was funny because when Jackson mentioned the notable opening odds, I was like, that is the segment that I am gonna shine, guys, because before we talk about that though, Jackson mentioned a really good point about the fact that it's a very offensive league, and a lot of critics and a lot of sports analysts, they say that that's one of the key factors as which that these five or six teams that have amazing offense, but then you also have the differentiator, which is the great defense of the Philadelphia Eagles. So CJ, I'm gonna go to you first. Do you agree with this statement? Do you think that obviously, if you have the best offense, you're probably gonna be in the top five or six? And then also, is the differentiator the fact that they have an exceptional, not just subpar decent, but an exceptional defense? That's what sets the Philadelphia Eagles aside from every other team on that list.
Um, that's tough because you could say have an exceptional offense, a la Cincinnati Bengals, right? Joe Burrow, he gets the ball, he's gonna
Mm,
sling it for 400. Jamar Chase is gonna, triple crown winner, right? And then T Higgins is gonna be no slouch himself. Great offense and really dangerous, can put up 40 on just about anybody. But that defense was just so lackluster. I mean, they had the spark with Trey Henderson, who could, get you a timely sack, being the sack leader. So he was that one bright spot. But if he wasn't getting to the quarterback fast, I mean, you were getting shredded, throughout the game. But then having a suffocating defense, right? And it's stopping them, but stopping the team. Obviously, not them scoring points. You can win, but you just have to be able to get enough, right? And a lot
yeah.
of times, obviously, with Saquon Barkley running wild, they had just enough, the old school Rex Ryan school of football, suffocating defense, blitz the hell out of the opposition, and just run the football with whoever you have at quarterback, right? So I don't think necessarily in this day and age having a top offense is enough to be a Super Bowl contender or Super Bowl champion. But if I had to do an either or, like which one I think will win you a Super Bowl more likely is probably the offense, just because of the fact that if you have enough timely stops, you just need one, or you just need to be able to play keep away if your offense is good enough to just hold on to the football. And obviously being able to be strategic around the halves, because that's where you can really flip a game on its head, especially if you get the ball to receive the second half and you can steal a possession before and score right before halftime, and then get the ball back again to give you that kind of boost and lead, and then that kind of changes the trajectory. So I would probably say um, offense, because especially times if the team has to get lucky enough on special teams, we've seen they can get
Mhm.
you flip the field, and you just need to get into field goal range to get a field goal, versus you have an explosive offense that they can just score whatever. So I would probably lean offense for
Okay,
sure.
Jackson, you kind of brought this up, which I'm very happy because that was one of my points that I wanted to discuss. Does that make sense to you? The fact that CJ pretty much says, "Yeah, I lean towards offense, but obviously, like if you have an exceptional defense, if you have both, you're gonna be the Super Bowl champs." That's what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles. But would you lean more towards offense, like the critics say, or would you say defense is actually more key?
I think it's funny that we're talking about it, and I mean, I did bring it up that we're talking about offense being kind of the thing that sets the precedent. And I just looked it up to make sure I was right on this. Neither team in the Super Bowl last year was in the top 6 or 7 in yards per game or points per game.
Hmm.
So our two Super Bowl contenders, the two teams that played, neither of them were in the top 6 or 7 in points or yards per game. Obviously, that does mean that they're in the top 10. So that starts to, cultivate the argument. And it wasn't the Chiefs. The Chiefs were even further out. Um, it starts to cultivate the argument that, like, offense isn't necessarily king. You have to have a total well-rounded team. Now, Philly ranked at the top of the league in defense, and so did Kansas City. So I think that we have this like mindset around offense, being the new rage or whatever, but last year kind of proved that it's still not the case, right? I think that's where Vegas makes its money, and people don't want to bet on teams that don't score. So if Philly comes out and wins some ugly games that are, um, that are just not high scoring, people aren't going to want to bet on Philly, even if they start the season 4-0. People aren't going to trust them anymore because they don't see the firepower, right? But the Bengals could start 4-0 and also win by a single digit every time, but they're letting up, they're winning like 41-38 every game. And there's going to be a lot of bettors that are like, "Oh, the Bengals are hot this year, I want to bet on the Bengals." And
Mhm.
it's the same margin of victory. It's just two different wins. And it seems like sustainably, the defensive teams are able to hold on to success longer just because you can only put up so many points every single week before some defensive coordinator is able to out scheme you. Whereas if you have a stout defense that's able to adjust on the fly to powerful offenses, you might have a fighting chance against those offenses and have them have a bad week.
And honestly, guys, if I were to lean one way or the other, because of last year's Super Bowl and only because of last year's Super Bowl, maybe because it's against the Kansas City Chiefs, but I honestly, no offense, CJ, I lean toward defense because the fact that what happened last year in that Super Bowl, because I think everybody going into that Super Bowl, at least we should have gotten together and made bets like during that time. But
Made
I
some
think
money.
maybe sorry, yep,
I made some money in that Super Bowl.
very good, very good. I'm just saying that I think that most people would think that the Chiefs were going to have that three-peat, and a lot of people were scared to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles. I also made a little bit of money because I wasn't afraid. Just I don't know, something was telling me that something was going to change, and if it did, I was going to make money. And that something was the defense. And that's clearly like what Jackson just said with the numbers and the fact that sustainably if you have a better defense, it's it's better in the long run throughout the season. I think if you have a sustainable defense and a pretty good offense, obviously, guys, the most ideal situation is exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did in the Super Bowl with the fact that they had the offense and the defense harmonized cohesively in a really stellar team that made a very dominant win in the Super Bowl. So before we jump into the notable opening odds, because that's one of the things that I really want to talk about. But one thing I want to bring up is that if anybody does not know, and I want to see what you guys think about this, the FPI, the Football Power Index ratings, were out at the end of May by I believe it's Seth Walter that he put those ratings up for everyone to see. So basically, the Football Power Index is pretty much a measure of a team's strength and how they're going to perform throughout the season, throughout the playoffs, that kind of thing. So it has a multitude of factors towards it. So basically, the Eagles obviously are number one, then the Chiefs, then the Ravens and the Lions and the Bills. So obviously, pretty much the same teams that I just listed, maybe a little bit, you know, by point one, point two, the ratings are so differentiated, but it's not that much difference at the end of the day. So I think the Eagles and the Chiefs, I believe I agree that they have the the strength in numbers. So I believe that those index ratings are correct. And then the Ravens, Lions, and Bills, I think the Bills should be higher than the Lions, honestly. But I have my own like reservations about the Lions in the playoffs, which we can get into in another segment because that's just going to take a whole extra hour. But what do you guys think about these ratings and this like football power index? Do you think it's pretty accurate, or do you think like I honestly think the Bills should be way above the Lions? What do you think? I'm going to start with Jackson first.
The Lions were a team that I wanted to bring up today, and
Mm,
I think we're kind of forgetting that, the Lions had a fantastic seasons last year, of course, but they had that season with a ton of injuries on defense. I mean, a like near record-breaking amount of injuries. Seemed like every time you turned on Red Zone, they were having to flip away from the Lions game because someone was down with an injury, right? I mean, they had it terrible, and they still had a very, impressive season. Now, for the Lions fans that have been so starved of success for such a long time, I think they kind of viewed this season as a like all or nothing kind of thing. Like we're not going to get blessed with another strong season. We need to go win a Super Bowl because we may not be good again. At least my neighbor who is a Lions fan feels that way. Um, and I don't think that I think they've got a really, really strong roster next year, right? A lot of those defensive guys that were hurt are returning. Of course, they had to lose some pieces as a powerful team usually does, because they were set up for success last year. But I mean, I've got full belief in them. Obviously, they have a high-powered offense. They've got a great receiving core, a great tight end, Goff plays great at quarterback. Their running back duo is outstanding. And I think as long as they can stay healthier this year, they're a team that I would not shy away from those odds on, you know, in these opening odds. I would say maybe bet for them to make the conference championship or something like that. I don't know if I would throw down money on a Super Bowl for the Lions, but you know, some metric of success I think is really not too far out for the Lions if they're able to stay healthy.
Okay, CJ, what do you think about these power index ratings? And do you agree with what Jackson was saying about the Lions?
Um, I honestly think that the line should be lower coming into the season. And I think, every year you're going to get that hangover of like what they were last year and to see that plus or minus change that can happen. So you always going to see who's the team that's going to make that biggest jump. And that's always something everyone wants to focus on the positivity of that big jump of obviously the Commanders were that team last year. Um, but I just think the thing that I don't think is being talked about enough is the fact that the Lions lost both of their coordinators. And to people, well, I know their new offensive coordinator has called plays before,
Mm-hmm.
and he was under Sean Payton's system. So they kind of have that Sean Payton alliance with Dan Campbell. And so that's going to be something new for them to see if they can work that cohesion. They can figure out that new synergy of a new system. I'm saying with the defensive staff, like new calling system. Obviously, they're going to have their players back, so that's going to be good. But it always seemed to be like when the Eagles last year they got new coordinators, it just kind of took them a step back, even though they were still a talented team. But it just didn't
Mm-hmm.
find the right balance of players that they or plays that they can do well. I think that I think the Packers are too high on this list. The Packers and the Bengals are way too high on the FBI. So you got Bengals at 7 and Packers at 8 over the Rams and Chargers. The 49ers are way too high at 11. That's insane as well. Vikings are way too low at 15, but I understand with the fact that JJ McCarthy as your starting quarterback, you don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely have. I mean, I would put the Rams. Like the Rams should possibly be as high as 7.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of like they only added pieces to this team, and they were a young, hungry defense last year, so they're only going to be another year, experience and hungrier, especially being the team that played the Eagles the hardest in the playoffs. So they were really close of being in the Super Bowl. The 49ers at 11 is kind of crazy because like they lost the heart of their team with the most of their experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be interesting. And the Broncos should be higher than the 49ers. Like Broncos was an elite defense that got even better. Some of the key pieces they got from the 49ers. And then a rookie quarterback who performed well, second place in rookie of the year. And he's only going to get more experience with Sean Payton. Like that is the biggest jumbo that I think needs to be
Mm-hmm.
adjusted on this FPI. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I didn't really look honestly, guys. I didn't really look beyond like 10 because I was just like we're covering a lot of teams if that's the case. But now, as Jackson pointed out, we are going to get super exciting because we are going to talk about the other notable opening odds. That's right. There are at least 4 teams that I've picked out that have, and one of them is Mr. Beloved CJ's team is in there. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But I picked out 4. So the first one is number 1, the San Francisco 49ers at plus 1300. Already the odds are impeccable. So I was talking to my partner, funny enough, and I said that I might just put $100 just in case
Oh wow.
something happens and I get lucky. You know what I'm saying? Because that would be a miracle and a half. probably, if we're going to be honest right now. So number 2 is Mr. CJ's team, the Washington Commanders at plus 2,000. And
Ooh,
actually,
that.
yeah.
I'm gonna put on that one.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I knew that was going to happen. And then actually, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Green Bay Packers are actually tied at in terms of odds at plus 2,000. So,
Oof.
yeah, I know, right? I'm going to start with Jackson first. Those are the first 4 teams that are the notable, I guess, opening odds teams. So, like, what do you think is the rationale behind the fact that these 4 teams were chosen? And do you agree with these odds at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think it's tough. This seems like a year where there's a really stout top bunch of, say, like 5 to 7 teams, and I don't really see a lot of contenders outside of it, right? I think that the Commanders are just on the outside looking in, and they're probably one of the few teams that are outside of that bunch that I could see putting the pieces together because they're so young, and if they do figure it out, they can be very threatening. Um, but other than that, I don't see the Bengals putting it together. They don't have enough defense. It's not a sustainable model. In the playoffs, you have to win several games in a row, and you can't win several games in a row if you can't play defense. It just won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Packers are, I think the reason that people are somewhat high on the Packers is because they're a consistent team, and by consistent, I obviously I that can be construed different ways, but we're talking about like who has a really high powered offense versus a high powered defense and whatever. And the Packers are kind of just above average in both.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to a lot of people can trick others into feeling like that's consistency. Oh, they're not too offensively weighted or too defensively weighted. It just means that they're not elite at either one of them, right? I think that they're one that, a lot of people might be like, well, I don't think the Packers are high enough. Maybe they could figure it out if they're consistent enough. And so I think the Packers may fool some people into putting money down that they'll regret as well. So yeah, I just think it's a really high-powered top group.
Yeah.
What do you think about the 49ers being at plus 1,300, though? Is that like something that you agree with? Would you ever put money on the 49ers?
If you're going to put money on the 49ers, I want you to pick either me or a charity of your choice and give them the money. I, there's no reason at all why you would think that the 49ers are going to contend. They may not make the playoff. They probably don't make the playoff this year. 11 on the FPI index, and then having a better odds than the Commanders, the Bengals, and the Packers. Like yeah, it's outlandish. It makes no sense. I don't. I think that their odds are going to slide very far, very fast. I think that Vegas is going to see that no one's putting a dime on the Niners, and they'll have to adjust their line.
Okay, CJ, it's your turn. Let's talk about your beloved Washington Commanders at plus 2,000, with the other teams, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Green Bay Packers, also at plus 2,000. What do you think about that? Do you agree? Do you think that you're going to put some money on the Commanders this year?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put. Let's say if I, save some money, got a nice little paycheck, the whole paycheck. I'm putting division, winning the division, divisional round, championship round, Super Bowl, coach of the year, MVP, offensive player of the year. I'm putting the whole house down on the Washington Commander this year. I'm going Debo Samuel, offensive player of the year. I'm going JD5 as MVP. I'm going Dan Quinn, head coach of the year. Because he definitely didn't get enough respect for what he did last year. And the fact that he didn't at all get any kind of votes is kind of crazy. And I think that, how like a lot of these awards, if you kind of match your production the year before, they kind of like have like a makeup year, similar to like NBA with Shea. He should have probably won MVP the year before. And then now he's kind of made up for it this year. I think that's what's going to happen with the Commanders, and they're going to get all of the awards, and I'm going to make all the money. and it's going to be fabulous. The Bengals again, like the Bengals is one of those teams. I think it is. I think it's a Vegas. It's the biggest like Vegas like prop of like like how hot they got down the stretch. They got super hot. And so anything can happen. Like Joe Burrow will make you feel like anything can happen when it's just me and you. Like I feel like I'm on top of the world. But reality is you're probably on drugs and this is not right. And with the fact that unless they play out of their skull, Shamar Stewart comes in if they, try to, fix the contract, you know, make a move, and if they get, stellar play from these young guys that step up with Al Golden as the defensive coordinator, and he schemes them to perfection, then possibly you could have like this fairy tale with the Bengals, and they happen to start faster than they did this past year. That is possible. So like that's why the Bengals just feel like that they're good enough on the offensive side. But maybe if we can just get a couple stops per game, like the Bengals should be there. So I think that's why Vegas loves. I think the Vegas has like a good line on them just because it's like it's a good number, but yeah, you can believe yourself. You can hope yourself out of that $20 to be like, you know what, let me just throw 20 on them and let it ride. And last thing with the Packers, they for the last 2 years they have been the youngest team in the NFL, and they're still, I think, still are the youngest team in the NFL. Which makes you can persuade yourself into believing what they finally have enough experience this year. Jordan Love is finally mature enough. This is year 3 of him finally starting that money. You got to figure out with the money. He's going to continue the lineage of elite quarterbacks for the Green Bay Packers. Then you have a borderline elite, great running back there. One of these, receivers have to break out, right? One of them have to break out. So then, like, now you're doing mental gymnastics. Like, okay, the Green Bay Packers, no one's going to see it coming. The Vikings going to take a step back. Who knows what the Bears are going to be? Bear. Who else is in that division? Bears, Vikings, Packers, Lions. Do you think the Lions could take a step back because of losing their coordinators? You just think this is LaFleur's time. He's always won. He's has a winning record since taking over. Mm-hmm. I think I just persuaded you to put $100 down for the Packers.
Okay, Jackson, any rebuttals on what CJ was saying? I love the passion, and I love the fact that you're so convinced, which is a good thing. I'm not judging you on this. You're convinced that the Commanders should be like go all out on when it comes to this season. And Jackson, do you think that CJ has a good point when it comes to all of these? Because I think what you kind of presented was more of I don't think these teams have a chance in hell. Kind of, I'm just exaggerating, but like, of winning the Super Bowl this year. What do you think about what CJ has to say?
I'm going to give one last little bit of hate to the Niners and say that I just looked at Vegas Insider, and their over-under for wins on the season is 10.5. And that under is free money.
That is free money.
That is free money. Yeah. Go ahead and bet under on that, and then just go ahead and plan on what you're going to do with the money you get from that. Because that's ridiculous. 10.5, they probably don't even hit 8. I feel like this season.
Wow, okay.
I think 8 will be a good year for the 49ers because they won 6 last year, so that's a 2-game improvement. So you can again hype yourself up to thinking this was a good year. We lost all these pieces. We got a young core. Now next year is our year.
Yeah, and you get some free money out of it.
Exactly.
You're like, I want us to improve by 3 games or less. Or I guess 4. But yeah, no, I really don't hate on CJ's support of his home team. I think if my home team had a fighting chance, I would be as psychotic about my team as well.
We have to talk about the
Um,
theory. We have to talk about the theory and history if you're going
we
to bring
do.
about your hometown team.
We do. We'll bring that up in the next talking segment. We'll make sure to talk about it today, though. I'd say that plenty of CJ's takes are things that you could put money on and you could actually make some money on. Some longer than others, except for Debo Samuel, Offensive Player of the Year. I think he got carried away there. I think.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm telling you, motivated. He's on a diet. He's about to go. He's going to run the ball for 5 touchdowns. He's going to have 10 receiving touchdowns. Okay,
Maybe if he's eating a less.
If it's not Debo, Terry McLaurin, he finally gets his respect as a top 5 wide receiver. Okay, fine. We can haggle. Agreed.
As long as Debo has a less greasy diet, so his hands aren't as slick, maybe he could play a little better, But
We got some
the whole clean diet, you're starting to sound like a Lakers Luka Doncic fan.
or a Pelicans. Well, I'm not going to say his name right now.
Oh yeah,
Don't say it.
yeah.
He should be not spoken. He should be not named. Okay,
We'll let
so
the NBA podcast talk about him.
exactly. Oh my gosh, we could always cross-reference sports. But anyways, before we move on to the next segment, I want to talk about some of the comments in the YouTube chat. There was somebody named Woodage84 that said that the Bears will win it all, and Fluent will be even more fluent. Going from Favre to Rodgers to Love since 1992 is unfair, but not not many Super Bowl wins in that span. So obviously addressing the Bears and addressing the Green Bay Packers. So anybody have anything to say about that? Obviously really good points from all of you guys, including the people in our chat. But if we don't, then we can move on to our next segment.
Well, the Bears still haven't. I had this thought. We could talk about this on another show.
Mm-hmm.
If Caleb Williams becomes the best quarterback in the history of the most accomplished quarterback in the history of the Chicago franchise, is that a big accomplishment, or is it sad due to the state of affairs of the Chicago Bears and the history of quarterbacks? And I had this thought, and I've been pondering, like, is it an accomplishment? Yes, to finally throw for 4,000 yards that no one has done in the over 100-year history of the Chicago Bears. That's great in like the normal sense of today's game. But then it's like you could probably become the number 1 quarterback passing leader in like 5 years. Similar to what CJ Stroud is, I think, about to pass or might be passing soon because the history is so short for the Houston Texans. So I don't know. Just something to think about.
Could you be the best QB in Bears history and not be in the Hall of Fame?
Possibly. Who's the best quarterback right now in history? Rex Grossman?
Right. We were just talking about recently, because obviously the further back you dive into NFL history, the passing yards are going to decrease because they didn't throw the ball as much.
Right.
But we were talking recently, me and some friends, about how it is shocking that we talk about the lackluster Bears history at quarterback and how Jay Cutler never hit 4,000 yards. Jay Cutler, I say what you want, he was a good quarterback, an absolute clown off the field, a very entertaining guy, but like, it's shocking. Yeah, he was a gunslinger, he was a guy who wasn't afraid to take risks. He played confident, he played fast, he played aggressive, and the fact that he doesn't have a 4,000-yard season speaks to probably the management of the Bears. I feel like he could have done it at any point. And if we didn't know already how bad the Bears QB history is, I wouldn't have assumed he hadn't had a season like that.
Yeah. Especially when you had Brandon Marshall have like 1,500 yards. I mean, he had pretty much halfway there, a couple of years.
These players are not identical, so don't take me as saying this. But is the Jay Cutler experience with a struggling Bears with all his talent all that dissimilar to Matt Stafford's struggles on the Lions?
But I don't know, because Matt Stafford still was really good. I mean, he did have one good year to make the playoffs, and won a playoff game. But he was consistently throwing over 4,000 yards.
I do not believe he had a playoff win in Detroit, if I'm
It
correct
was
about that.
it was the year that they had, what is his name? He was like he won 10 games for the Detroit Lions and they fired him. I can't remember his name. He wound up being the head coach for the Texans, I think, for a year. And he was like an offensive coordinator for the Ravens at one point. Or no, he was the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton. And I can't think of his name. It's not coming.
Not registering. It's all good, guys. Don't worry. Somebody will look this up, and somebody will tell us.
I've got it right here.
I knew you would.
Who is
Matt
it?
Stafford played for the Detroit Lions from 2009 to 2020, and in that time, he appeared in 3 playoff games with the team. During that period, the Lions had 0 playoff wins with Stafford. All 3 of Stafford's playoff games with the Lions resulted in losses.
Really? I swear the Lions won 1 playoff game.
I believe that the only reason that stuck with me is because Stafford's first playoff win came with the Rams, and he won the Super Bowl in that year. So his first playoff win was a string of wins.
Oh, wow.
Leading to a Super Bowl. So obviously the trade worked out very well for him. He got that ring that he, I believe, so much deserved with all that time spent in Detroit.
Hall of Famer? Question mark?
Seems like they're pretty generous with it. So
Eli didn't go in this past year, so that makes me happy. I just don't think Eli's a Hall of Famer.
You just have to be a really big Patriots hater to believe that he is.
Yeah.
And we've got some Pats fans on the show.
We do, but I here's the thing. We just created a new topic for a future show. That is great, guys. Well done. Well done. Good work. So this, you think the notable opening odds for the Super Bowl is so exciting, but wait till you see what I have cooking next. It is the most likely Super Bowl 60 matchups. Oh, it's going to be so much fun talking about this. There actually are some that have been out from Fox Sports. And I don't know whether to start from the bottom up or top down.
Wait, is this year 60?
I think so.
Or that's next year.
This is 59.
Okay,
Is
so
it
2 years out.
Wait, no.
I
That's
swear
correct.
60.
That's
I
correct.
think it's 60,
60's
guys.
coming up.
I'm pretty sure it's 60 because last year was 59, right? So
correct.
What is the New Orleans Saints odds?
I have what is it? The matchups here, but let's see.
Oh, you're talking about matchups.
Yeah, we're talking about matchups.
Oh,
now.
okay, copy.
We're talking about matchups, so that's why I think I'm gonna go from the top down. Okay. I'm gonna go from the top down because it's gonna be fun once we get to the bottom. So, number 1, we got the Ravens and the Eagles at plus 1,800. It's not bad, guys. It's actually not that bad. I can definitely see that happening. Number 2, it gets even better. We have the Bills and the Eagles at plus 2,000. Number 3 is what many people were going to say hopefully would be number 1, which is the Chiefs versus the Eagles at plus 2,400. Gets better. I think I'm at number 4. Yes. Bills versus Lions at plus 2,500.
They wanted that last year.
That's the People's Super Bowl. I wish.
Yep. Both teams never won a Super Bowl. And the Lions have never appeared in a Super Bowl.
Correct.
And it keeps going, guys. Number 5, Ravens versus Lions at plus 2,700. Then it gets more interesting. Chiefs versus Lions at plus 3,000. Oh, wait till you see the last one. Oh my gosh. Number, I think it's 6, Bengals versus Eagles at plus 3,900. And then the last one, save this the best for last because I want to see you guys take on this one. Number 7 or 8, Bills versus Rams plus 4 freaking thousand. There you go, my friends. Those are the most likely Super Bowl 60 matchups.
CJ, you asked what the Saints Super Bowl odds were, and they are plus 30,000. So,
Holy
That's a pure donation. I need to see their
yeah.
odds for most likely to get the #1 overall pick next year. That's
So for
something
you
we might.
guys, yeah, for you guys, you listeners out there that aren't familiar with odds and returns, plus 30,000 means that if you bet $100 on the New Orleans Saints to win the Super Bowl, you would lose $100.
Very true.
that's a very good explanation, Jackson. I was just like, wait, is he actually gonna go into like the gambling, like fundamentals of gambling? And then he's like,
Right.
no, it's actually even better. It's pure logic. Anyways, so let's talk about a few of these matchups here and there. Which ones, and I know I listed a lot of them, so I'm gonna try to reiterate them. What I like right now is the Ravens versus the Eagles. Obviously, I can see that happening for sure. And then the Bills versus Eagles. I can see that happening at plus 2,000. And then if I were to pick one of the ones that were closer to the bottom that I'd maybe take a chance on, uh, Ravens versus Lions. Oh, this is so hard. This is so painful. But that's a little bit of a stretch. But I can't see like any of the other ones, like Bills versus Rams. I can't see as much as I would love to bet on plus 4,000, but I can't. Let's see. I'm gonna start with Jackson first. Any of the ones that I mentioned stand out to you?
I think the odds make the most sense. They're the most consistent teams across the year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once you start diving into like Bills and Lions and stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
wish, right? Those are two exciting teams with passionate fan bases that have
Mm-hmm.
endured tough years that I believe truly the nation would enjoy that Super Bowl, and that's about where you stop betting money on it because like that won't happen. We're not going to get that out of our investment, but if you could get one of those teams in, have a people's favorite against a villain, so say, uh, I don't know, the Bills versus the Eagles. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a fun one that I think a lot of people would cheer for.
Yeah.
Um, but us getting two fun teams in the Super Bowl is tough because the fun teams are the ones that slide. They're so volatile. That's why we love them. And so it's very unlikely that we get two fan favorites.
Okay, CJ, any of the ones that I mentioned stick out to you? And are there any surprising ones that you're like, oh, maybe, just maybe, I might just put some money on them?
I think the last one you said the Rams and the was it Rams and Bills? Was it?
Yep.
I like that one. I really like the Rams outside of the Commanders to make it to the Super Bowl. From the
Mm,
NFC, I wouldn't be surprised, right, if we get an all LA of Super Bowl, Rams and Chargers. That would be kind of fun and chaotic. I really do like Harbaugh this year. His madman craziness with a legit running back room now um, behind him, and really wanting to do. He's dreaming about making Justin Herbert a Hall of Famer. So if that's the case, then it's going to be an MVP type of year, a Super Bowl run or a Super Bowl win. So teams that I'm really high on, I think early odds would be Chargers, Rams, and probably Chiefs. And because you just can never not bet on the Chiefs, right? So it's like, um, I think I would do like a Commander in Chief Super Bowl You know,
Whoa, okay.
that was my pick last year. I think I'm just gonna run it back this year.
That sounds like
Uh,
No, it's just funny. The commander in chief, you call it like the Trump Super Bowl or something because it's
yeah,
like the
exactly.
secondary
yeah.
title
So
for the president.
it
You
gives
know,
it fun for social media. It'd be easy to sell for Super Bowl 60. It's going to be big, the biggest Super Bowl. You know, you can write the narratives all you want there. But I can also see LA. I would go Rams, Chiefs, or Commanders, Chiefs Super Bowl. That's kind of my early prediction right now.
if we're
Okay,
talking
guys.
Super Bowl and we have 5 minutes left, I need to pitch the theory, okay?
Okay,
And
yeah, go ahead.
the theory states that if Ohio State is the defending national champion, the Panthers open against the Jaguars, Jennifer Lopez files for divorce. In that year, the Panthers have appeared in the Super Bowl every single time. You guys have watched The Anchorman. 60% of the time, it works every time. I'm taking the long odds. I'm sure the Panthers have as bad of odds as the Saints do.
Mm.
Go ahead and mail it in. Put your money down on it. The universe never fails. J Lo is in on it. The Buckeyes are in on it, and the NFL commissioner is scheduling the Panthers versus Jags in Week 1. It's a done deal. Go ahead and put your money in and reap the rewards of a repeating history. Don't bet on them to win it. That's not going to happen.
That's hilarious. I love that. So, guys, what I'm proposing is because I really want like a full squad when we talk about who we think ultimately is going to win the Super Bowl, because I know it's like this whole topic you can talk about it for hours on
Oh,
end.
easily.
And the explanation of like what CJ or Jackson or Cody or Josh or I think who's going to win the Super Bowl, that can take another show. So I'm proposing once we have everybody here, we are going to have a full-fledged who we think is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and everybody's going to go. Everybody has like 15 minutes ish. I'm obviously bad at math right now, but anyways, no, 12 minutes. There you go. So everyone has like 12 minutes, and everyone's gonna go and explain and present to everybody that's watching or listening who we think is gonna win the Super Bowl and why. I am proposing that because there's no way we're gonna be able to do that in like 3 minutes tops between the three of us. So that is what I am thinking. Yep, Jackson, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, to argue my case, if I can't get J Lo on the show for us, I'll at least get notorious Patriots fan Ben Affleck, who plays just an equal role in this as anyone does.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. Love that. And what is it called? I want to get I think it was Jay Cutler, and quote me if I'm wrong. He was married to Kristen Cavallari, who was the Laguna Beach, like star of the show, pretty much one of the
Mhm.
stars of the show. And then I believe they had a divorce, and then it was towards the end of his career, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if there's a theory behind that, but since like Jackson brought it up, I want to see. Maybe next time on the show we can talk about stuff like that, because you never know, things like that can affect a lot of players. I wouldn't be surprised, right? So there you go.
I
I
mean,
think
can we
Jackson.
see a fairy tale ending this year, finally, where Travis Kelsey gets down on one knee and proposes to Taylor
Oh
Swift
God.
in the game to win the Super Bowl 60, and then they're gonna write a movie about it, and he
A
goes off
song.
into
They're gonna write a
retirement. He
song
opens
about
it
it.
in
They're gonna write a whole song.
it just makes too much sense.
Yeah. Oh God. If we're gonna talk about like partners in the NFL, that could be a segment we could talk about if anybody's interested. Maybe we can reach another
Yeah, if you want to
demographic
dive into
besides.
the Travis Hunter wedding that happened this past week, get into notorious partners.
Getting nasty.
Yeah, I'm down, guys. You know me. I love that kind of stuff. So like, put me down. We have at least two topics pending for our show, which is great. Very good.
Everything's brewing.
And yeah, man. Okay, so before we go, we have merchandise that is for sale. We have From the Sidelines t-shirts that are on sale for $19.99 at the website right in the banner. I believe it's Printfly from Fluent. So you guys can go and pick up your shirts there and support the cause. And thank you to my esteemed co-host. I had so much fun tonight talking about this topic, and we are definitely going to bring up the fact that we're going to continue on this trend of who we think is going to win Super Bowl, who we think is going to win Game 1, everything like that. We're going to keep going on because we only have 96 days before the start of the season. Okay, thank you to CJ, thank you to Jackson, and we will see you guys next week for the show.
Oh, Canada.
Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey man, call your mother.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
Nah, they lying to you. It's about the money.
Now you're more fluent.